Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostroski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
It is Tuesday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. That means one thing here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. It is now time for the Big O Show as we get into a little preview of this week's matchup. We finally get an AFC East matchup, folks. We got the Jets on Monday night in MetLife Stadium. That game, 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central. The Buffalo Bills, now 3-2. They lost their last two. Their head coach, Sean McDermott. The Jets, 2-3. They have a new head coach, folks. Today, I guess it would be yesterday, they relieved their head coach, Salah, of his duties, and interim head coach for the Jets, Jeff Ulbrich, the defense coordinator, also a former NFL player, a guy that was a linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, amongst some other teams, a really good football player, and it'll be interesting to see just how successful he is as head coach of the Jets, because many people feel the head coach takes snaps for the Jets. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And I kind of want to do a little bit more this week, not so much getting into the Jets, so to speak, just a little bit more about the Bills and what they got going on and just kind of what they need to do to kind of fix their offensive issues and maybe look at some myths and some truths of what's going on with that offensive unit and the team in general. But the Bills come in a 2.5-point favorite, over under 41 points again, Monday night, AFC East matchup in MetLife Stadium. And the particulars of this matchup, if you look at the last 5 matchups between these teams, the Bills obviously they win that last game 32-6 in Buffalo. The Aaron Rodgers, 17 seconds into the season, Achilles injury game, the first game of the season. The Bills lose that game 22-16. It's been a back and forth matchup. Who plays at home is who won. In 22, the Bills win at home, the Jets win at home, and then obviously that playoff game, Buffalo wins. But you look at the rankings, the Bills are 3-2. They're 2-0 at home. They are 1-2 away from home. The Jets 1-1 at home, 1-2 away from MetLife. Bills come in ranked third still. I know that's hard to believe. Ranked third still with 28.4 points per game scored. Jets come in 25th, 18.6. Their woes have been on offense. Defense, they've been good. Maybe not as good as people felt they would be, but they are good. Points allowed, Bills 12th, 21.2. Jets 5th with 17. And that points allowed stat is, I think, the most important stat on defense. You look at takeaways, Bills number 1 in the NFL. Josh Allen through 5 games, only 1 turnover, and it was a fumble. They are +7. The Jets are 15th at no takeaways. They're just flat, 0. The ones they've given up, the ones they've gotten, evens it out. They're at 0. Passing yards per game, Bills coming in 24th. We know all about the passing woes of the Bills right now. We'll get into that a little bit here in the show today. 181 yards per game, 24th. Jets, 19th at 206. Rushing yards per game, Bills come in at a good 14th at 118 a game. Jets, 32nd, even with Breece Hall. They come in with 80 yards rushing a game. Defense, passing yards, Bills 14th at 198. Jets, second in the league at 136. Obviously, Sauce Gardner, a star in that defensive backfield. And then defensive rushing yards allowed. Bills 26 with 144, skewed because of that Derrick Henry game. And then the Jets come in 14th with 119 points allowed. Before we get to Dr. Brad Bowen from Driven Physical Therapy and Performance, a little bit about the Jets injury report. Morgan Moses, their offensive tackle, did not participate. He is out with a knee. He'll be out for a little while. Fatu, the defensive lineman, was limited with a hamstring. His status is doubtful. Also, the star Pro Bowler, All-Pro player C.J. Mosley, inside linebacker, limited. He's doubtful with a toe. Aaron Rodgers was full with a knee. Tyron Smith full. He got veteran rest, obviously. So that's kind of particulars of their injury report. But right now we bring into the show our good friend, Dr. Brad Bowen from Driven Physical Therapy and Performance. There he is. My man, Brad, joins us.
Hey, Jerry, how are you?
Amazing, man. Amazing. It's technology. You caught on quick. But the Buffalo Bills obviously have some injuries, and we'll get into some new injuries that were listed today in a list put out on Twitter by Sal Capaccio. Khalil Shakir was out. He did not participate today with an ankle. Ed Oliver, again, he was out with a hamstring. Taron Johnson limited with that forearm. Tyler Rapp has cleared protocol, which is a huge, huge bit of news for the Bills, as that safety group is not only depleted, but they are struggling. And Rapp is a constant. I think Rapp is probably a guy that is completely overlooked by this fan base as a guy that's very, very valued on this football team. He cleared protocol. Austin Johnson was limited with the oblique. And then we've got a couple of new names on this list. One being James Cook, the tailback. He was out today with a foot/toe, as was Curtis Samuel, out today with a foot/toe, a guy that's had toe issues throughout the summer in camp. And Brad, pretty extensive injury report.
We've added a few names to the list, unfortunately, so we got a little bit to talk about tonight. But you mentioned the passing offense not being the best. Well, James Cook has kind of been holding it down, and that's kind of my main concern going into this upcoming week. So James Cook is out with a toe or foot injury, and if everyone can recall the last wheel route that he had that a lot of people said McDermott should have thrown the flag on, James Cook came down and landed extremely hard on his left foot. His toe slammed into the ground, slammed that big toe up into extension. And I believe that it's probably a great toe injury. So people would go back and say turf toe again with the velocity in which his foot hit the ground. My main concern is not only the joint, so he could be pretty swollen there, but also the tissue that's associated with the bottom of the foot, which is why I believe it's listed as a toe and foot injury. Now, I believe Sal had a picture of him riding the bike today. I didn't get any video of him walking. I wish we did. That would tell us a lot more as to how he's feeling. Right. But as of right now, we're going to have to take it day by day.
Obviously, Curtis Samuel on that list as well with a foot toe injury. It's one of those things. That injury is something you can re-aggravate, and it can linger for quite some time.
Correct. Now, I don't know for sure if it's the exact same foot that he had in the preseason. His injury was a little bit different. It was more of a twisting mechanism. So he kind of stepped on Dawson Knox's foot as he was run blocking, twisting his right foot kind of from left to right, so inside to outside, but his heel was not on the ground. So a lot of that pressure was placed up on his toes, essentially, which could give you a mechanism injury for a number of things. My main concern would be the Liz Frank joint, the midfoot joint. Everyone kind of hears that injury and they cringe a little bit because it's mostly known for fractures, but you can have sprains there as well. Hoping that's not the case. Maybe again, just re-aggravated that great toe. But if it is a sprain of the midfoot, I'm not super hopeful that he'll be out there this week.
I got to ask you this question because obviously I have kids that played high school football, play college football. These foot injuries and toe injuries, midfoot injuries, I mean, it seems to be more prevalent than it's been in the past. I'd have to think with our desire to be as light as possible, and we wear minimalistic shoes. And when I say minimalistic, I mean not much to them. I mean, there's not much structure to them. Hell, when I played half the time, we were in basketball shoes. And you played, you understand. I mean, high tops, the whole shebang, right?
Yep.
Is there any sort of link to these little just nothing to them shoes and these foot injuries? Because it seems to be more and more every year.
It does place a lot more stress on the foot and the joints and the tissues associated with that. Now, obviously, light footwear makes the guys feel fast, run fast, cut hard, things like that. But if the shoe isn't picking up the beating for you, your foot has to. Now, there's a lot of sports science behind training the feet now. I think Mac Hollins is a big proponent of that. But if you're wearing these tiny shoes just throughout the season, but you're not doing work in the offseason to make sure that your foot and ankle remains healthy, things like this, I believe, can pop up a little bit more prevalently. So I hope that the guys are working hard in the offseason, and this isn't a byproduct of that. But it certainly seems to be hampering the Bills pretty hard right now.
You brought something up about Mac Hollins and the walking around with no shoes, and obviously it's kind of that whole theory of if I don't wear ankle tape all the time, my ankles are stronger because they have to support themselves. I have a friend that's in the training world as well, PT/training world and all this. And he does some work with a bunch of our O-line athletes. And a big portion of that work is not only ankle flexibility, but big toe flexibility and a lot of work with the big toe. Kind of get into that a little bit and just kind of what you can do because, I know the old adage, the old joke, the knee bone's connected to the, and you guys are so amazing at what you do. You come in with a back problem. You're like, well, it's not your back, it's your hips, right? Just what can you do with that toe to help athletes out? What do you do with them?
Yeah, so that you're exactly right. Everything is connected in one way, shape, or form. So if you don't have good strength to your great toe, that is actually an arch weakness, so a foot weakness. If you have foot weakness like that, it can lead to overpronation or that foot falling flat, which increases the stress in the ankle. So these things kind of go up the chain. It all starts with your feet and works its way up. So if you don't have that solid foundation and that arch and the intrinsic muscles of your foot built up, it is more likely to have ankle injuries or even knee and hip injuries throughout the season too. So I think there's an emphasis being placed on it. I think there should be. And certainly with the way the team's going right now, I hope the training staff is thinking about that a little bit more going through this season.
Exactly. And Dr. Brad Bowen joins us from Driven Physical Therapy Performance, as he does every week here on the Big O Show on Thursday nights. And, we talked a lot about the new guys on this list. Let's talk about two other guys that are extremely important to this Buffalo Bills football team. That's Khalil Shakir and Ed Oliver. You kind of had a really good assessment of Shakir's ankle injury when it happened in the Baltimore game, kind of based off of what you saw, just kind of recap maybe what you believe. And is this something like is this a high ankle sprain? Is this more of a low ankle sprain? Maybe your timetable on this.
Yeah, so I would keep my fingers crossed for more of a deltoid ligament on the inside, but I believe it probably is a mild high ankle sprain just on how they're playing it out. He was spatted up today. That's pretty normal for him. So he does that, and it seems to be every practice, every game. So that's not unusual for him to do that. He was seen kind of running through some ladder drills, some light jogging and stuff today. I would consider that lower athletic movement. So he's not really pressing himself hard, but the good part is he didn't look uncomfortable and it looked fluid. There was no crazy compensations that he was doing. So I'm actually pretty hopeful that we're going to see a return from him on Monday. And we all know at this point our offense could use it.
Exactly. A little bit, anything about Ed Oliver you want to get into?
Ed, I don't know too much about exactly how he hurt his hamstring. I believe that happened in practice last week. My biggest concern with a guy like Ed Oliver is he is springy for his size. He's a big guy that can move, and with the position, the 3-point stance that those big guys get into, if it's a high hamstring, meaning kind of up underneath the butt cheek, if you will, that requires a lot of hip flexion, a lot of force at that high hamstring to then explode out coming off the ball. So if it's a high hamstring injury, this could actually be a pretty big deal for him going forward. The fact that we haven't seen him back in practice already tells me they're taking it pretty seriously. And this could be several weeks before we see a guy of his size come back if that injury truly is nagging him pretty hard.
Dr. Brad Bowen, Driven Physical Therapy Performance. If you have anything you want to work on as far as injuries go, somebody in your family, a son, a daughter that's an athlete that has some stuff going on. And also we talk about it all the time, and it's kind of revolves around the discussion we had with the exercises on that big toe joint. Obviously, if you have some things you want to work on, if you're a golfer, I'm a big golfer. I golf all the time, and you want to get some stuff or do some prehab, work on some things to get you better turn, better hip turn, all that. Go see Dr. Bowen. He can help you in a lot of different avenues. But Brad, real quick, why don't you let our listeners know just how they can get a hold of you if they want to come get some therapy or some performance stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm located in Elma inside of STA Sports Performance. My website is drivenptperformance.com, and you can give me a call at 716-341-9694.
He's Dr. Brad Bowen, exclusively here on Overreaction Buffalo, and he's here every Thursday here on the Big O Show. We appreciate him, as always, and his expertise. Brad, thank you very much, and have a good rest of the week, man.
Thank you, Jerry. You too.
All right. Dr. Brad Bowen, and like I said, he's on every week here on the Big O Show. And I want to get into a little bit. We'll get into some particulars as we go on. Obviously, if you look at the New York Jets 2024 leaders on offense, you got Aaron Rodgers, of course, the quarterback, 111 completions, 182 attempts, 1,093 yards, 7 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, the talented receiver out of Ohio State, 33 receptions, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. Breece Hall, 65 rushes, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, although they are struggling to run the football in New York. You look at the Buffalo Bills, led by Josh Allen, 79 completions, 131 attempts, 945 yards, 8 touchdowns. Shakir still the leading receiver, even though he didn't play last week and was a bit limited in that Ravens game, 18 receptions, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. And, of course, James Cook, who we cross our fingers isn't on that injury report very long, 70 rushes, 309 yards, and 4 touchdowns. When you look at this Buffalo Bills team coming off of 2 very, very subpar performances, you have to look at, everybody wants to know what's happening. We talk about the offense coordinator and the play calling. We talk about the wide receivers. Those are the 2 areas of emphasis over the last couple of weeks that have taken the biggest hit from Bills Mafia as far as what is wrong with this Bills offense and their performances. Now, that being said, I also think a lot has to be placed upon the quarterback. I am always going to place blame on the quarterback when I feel it's necessary. First of all, when a guy makes 20 to 25% of the salary cap and things aren't going the way they're supposed to be going, he's due criticism. It's part of the job. It's part of the position. But I think if you look at what's going on with the Bills and you look at some different things, there are some tells. And I'm going to I did a little bit of digging today on some stuff and maybe give you some ideas of what I think the Bills can do to get out of this funk. But the first thing I want to do is kind of maybe dispel a little bit of the myths about just what plays are being called, just what type of routes are being called, and those types of things. And while this offense has looked a little bit different, or I should say a lot different, because it hasn't had the success that it's had in the first 3 weeks, we want to hang our hat on the motion and the deception and the shifts and stuff. I think you really have to look into the routes and things of that nature. But you look at Josh Allen through 5 games. Game 1 against Arizona, 18 to 23, 232, 2 touchdowns, 137.7 quarterback rating. You go to Miami, 13 to 19, 139 yards, 1 touchdown, 107 quarterback rating. You go to the Jacksonville game, an amazing game for Josh, 23 of 30, 263 yards passing, 4 TDs, 142.1 quarterback rating. Then you go to Baltimore. On the road, big test, Sunday night. Very, very good defense. 16 to 29, 180 yards, no touchdowns, 73.9 rating. And then last week's debacle, where he did not look comfortable the entire game, did not play very well the entire game. 9 of 30, 131 yards, 1 touchdown, 56.4 rating. So I went into and looked at the receivers. And when I looked at the receivers, I looked at the routes that they are running. And when I did that, I looked at it. I looked at 4 areas: behind the line of scrimmage, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and 20 plus. Okay, those are the 4 route areas that I looked at. Those are the 4 areas that people track. And when I broke that down over 5 games, I looked at the first 3 games. Okay, in the first 3 games, they ran behind the line of scrimmage routes, the quick stuff to Samuel, Kincaid, the screen game, which we are not very good at, bubbles and things like that. We ran in the first 3 games, we ran 18 of those plays for about 25%. of the passes attempted. When I look at next level, 0 to 10, we ran 28 of those for about 39%. From 10 to 20, we ran 13 of those routes for about 18%, and then 20 plus, 9 of those for about 13%. Okay, so if you look at our bread and butter, most of it is in that 0 to 10 yard range. Then you got behind the line of scrimmage and then a little bit more. So again, emphasizing the short passing game. The ball gets out of his hand quick decisions, right? You go to the last two games. Those behind the line of scrimmage plays went from 18 to 7. Now, granted, it's one less game, but still drastic change, right? That's about 12%. 0 to 10 stayed about the same at 36% or so with 21 of those routes. When you look at 10 to 20 yards, you got 11. So basically the same, pretty much a wash, 21%. And then 20-plus yard routes elevated quite a bit to 14. Now, that's one less game and 5 more of those. You're looking at you're behind the score, you're trying to catch up and all that stuff, trying to force the ball downfield. They did run 14 of those routes, okay? If you look at this deal, we want to talk about how we've completely changed the way we call plays. We completely changed everything. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. If you look at percentages, everything's about the same. It's really not that drastic. There's a little bit behind the line of scrimmage that's changed. There's a little bit downfield that's changed, but a lot of that's kind of correlates with where we were as far as the outcomes of the game, right? So to say that this offense is completely different is a myth. Do I think we need to be a little more fluid in some of the play calling? I think so. Are we limited in our receivers? Yes, we are. I think the biggest thing to happen this week, and I know that people say, well, one player shouldn't make that big of a difference. Khalil Shakir is that important in this offense. When he's not on the field, that's Josh's go-to guy on third down. That's the one guy that he can trust is going to be there when he needs him there. He knows where he's going to be at all times. They have a really good rapport. Huge deal that he's not playing this past weekend. And if he can't play this week, it's going to be huge again. But if you look at this, and I go to PFF, and I've talked about this many, many times, PFF is not the be-all, end-all of player evaluation. They do some things that are quirky. They don't understand the techniques or play calls that were made or what was asked of a player. So I do believe there's some things that are off. But if you look at some of the better ratings for our Bills players, especially offensively, you look at Khalil Shakir, 21 out of 123, that's where he's rated, 21st out of 123 wide receivers. Dalton Kincaid, who has gotten some, I wouldn't say a little bit of grief, but maybe why are we not using him more? He's ranked the 8th tight end out of 72, okay? Cook at running back, 19th out of 62 tailbacks. You look at Josh Allen. Josh, he's 13th. He's about middle of the pack, all right? Then you look at some of our other receivers and some of our other guys on offense. You got Mac Hollins, who is 101st out of 120 receivers, Samuel, who's 92nd out of 123 receivers, and Coleman, who is 60th out of 123 receivers. Now, Coleman, I give him a walk. I give him a pass. He's a rookie. He's learning. Some feel maybe he's not being utilized the way he should be. I do believe that he's more of a weapon than we really want to believe, but the proof is in the pudding, folks. When the quarterback raises up and sees something, you can't have your body turn to get hit in the back of the helmet. You've got to be ready for that. You got to understand that. That's part of playing. It's part of learning. Okay. Here's one for you that's pretty glaring and pretty telling. Dawson Knox, 56th out of 72 tight ends. All right. So, yes, there are some deficiencies in that wide receiver room. And I think that the big topic this week has been about my man from the Raiders. Should they go ahead and trade for him? Should they not? I think this Buffalo Bills team is a playoff team. Do I think they can make the run we want them to make with where they are right now? I don't know. If you think Adams is a guy that can make this team, one player, make this team move and be a game changer to where this team can progress in the playoffs, then you make that move. I don't think you make this move because you're trying to win the division and get to the playoffs. You got to understand that one player is going to move the needle enough to make this team become something that over the last 2 weeks we have not seen, which is very good offensively. So that is where that is. We've got a couple of 4s. We got the extra 2. Can you make the math work with the numbers? How does that whole thing come together? But to make that sort of move, you've got to tell yourself, okay, this one player is going to move the needle enough that we're going to get to the championship game or possibly the Super Bowl. I don't know if I can say that yet. But I think also the way this offense is working and why I think maybe Josh is a little bit, you could say frustrated. I think it's more frustration than anything. And Tom Brady talked about it this week. Joe Miller, our partner here on the Overreaction Buffalo Network, powered by Believe, brought it up. There was a clip, and he was kind of likening Josh to his older son. You can tell them, but they're going to still have to do it themselves, right? And, I do believe that Josh would like to throw the ball downfield more and do some bigger things. But when you look at what's going on this football team, +7 turnover differential, right? 118 yards per game rushing, 14th in the NFL. All right. We talked about their points scored. They're third in the NFL, 28.4. If you look at the way the offense is running, I think, to me anyway, the offense is running in a style that the head coach prefers. We talk complimentary football. I shouldn't say we. He talks complimentary football. But when you look at a +7 turnover differential, your quarterback's not putting the ball in danger. Now, there's a few times he's done it, but they didn't make the interceptions. But he hasn't done it like he's done in the past. But with that, and we've talked about it a million times, with that, with protecting the football at a high level, you then start taking away some stuff, the big playability and those types of things. So I believe for this offense to change, maybe it's not necessarily the play calling or whatever, or going out and getting Devontae. It's the HC has to let this group do what they do. And I do believe this week, after 2 subpar performances, you'll probably see Josh fall back in line, and we'll get back to doing what we've been doing, the shorter passes again and those types of things. But until Shakir comes back, you're going to have some issues. You need Knox to step up and take some pressure off of Kincaid. You need some other guys to step up and do some things. Keon's going to have to grow up quickly. I don't think you can rely on Curtis Samuel. I watched the All-22. I broke it down. I looked at it a million times. Brady called multiple plays for Samuel. They were so predictable that most people knew what was going on. Obviously, the defense knew what was going on. So if you want to get him involved, hell, I don't know, do what you do with Deebo Samuel. Hand him the football in the backfield as a tailback. I don't know. Do some different stuff. But there are some things that the Bills need to get away from. The bootleg pass to the right. Teams have picked that up. Defensive ends are not respecting the play fake. If you want to have a better play fake, you got to have more motion up front. I'd almost maybe put some zone read stuff in and let Josh pull it and run with it if he needs to. That'll hold that defensive end up a little bit more. But you watch the way the teams of the last 2 weeks have been playing him. The minute he tries to get out of the pocket, they're sending people to the outside shoulder to keep him contained. He has not had any just completely free movement to the right. The scouting report, the analytics, all those things are showing defenses you need to keep him in the pocket to the right. And that's what teams are doing, whether it be with a defensive end that's not respecting the play fake or it's a spy. So if you want to run play action, quit running the boots and run more hard downhill play action and keep him back behind the center or just move him a little bit behind the guard. But the bootleg stuff does not work, although I do believe they do need to run more play action. But when you think about this team right now, and like I said, we're going to talk more about the Bills today than the Jets, because I believe if the Bills right now are their own worst enemy, if the Bills take care of business, then they take care of the Jets. The Jets have their own issues. Okay, new head coach, an offense that's not performing the way that they want it to perform. There's been rumors going around this week that they were going to the previous head coach wanted to fire Hackett. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers intervenes and they end up firing the head coach. And this is a good football team. This is a team led by Aaron Rodgers on offense. If they can figure out how to run the ball, they are a retooled offensive line. Like I said, Moses is out. Tyron Smith, John Simpson. They've got a good group up front. Breece Hall is a quality back. Garrett Wilson, Lazard, and Mike Williams. They've got good receivers. Defensively, this is a team that will get after you. Will McDonald, the fourth, at one defensive end. You got Michael Clemens at the other. You got Quinnen Williams, one of the premier one techniques in the league. You also got Michael Clemens inside, and obviously that linebacker core. C.J. Mosley's questionable. If he can't play, that's a huge blow. But Quincy Williams is a tremendous player, as is Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Tony Adams, Chuck Clark. They've got talent all over that defense. So this Bills team's going to have to come out, and with all the issues that the Jets have, they're going to have to figure out their stuff. And these are the three keys to the games to me. Besides the fact we got Tyler Rapp back, which is huge because that safety group is struggling. That Nico Collins touchdown was a Cole Bishop bust. You could have saw it at the start. Him coming back brings leadership in that secondary. Obviously, Shakir would be a guy that we really, really like to have play. We'll see how that goes. Dr. Brad Bowen earlier said that he's optimistic. We'll see as the week goes on. They get the extra day of rest because it's Monday night. But my keys to the game. First is this. The Bills cannot abandon the run. They have to continue to run the ball, whether it's for 2 yards, 3 yards, if they pop one for 8, whatever. They've got to run the ball and continue to keep this defense honest, because this defense will get after the passer if they don't. And one of the things, and John Fina and I talked about it off air, one of the things that I've been really, really impressed with by this Bills team is the lack of negative plays in the running game. They don't have a tremendous bunch of runs that are for 4, 5, 6 yards lost. They're moving the sticks. They're staying in front of the chain, so to speak. So they're going to have to continue to run this football and continue to keep the Jets honest, especially if they want to run play action. Then you look at the second thing, and that's you got to frustrate Aaron Rodgers. It seems the older he gets, he's like most of us to get older, he gets angry. But you got to frustrate him, okay? You got to pressure him. You got to get him to move off his spot. At one time, he was the best thrower in the league on the move. He's still pretty damn good at it, okay? He's still good at it, but he's not as good as he used to be. He's 40 years old, folks. But just some of the things you look at with Rodgers, he's been sacked 13 times. 9 times he's avoided the sack on his own, okay? He's only responsible for 3 of those 13 sacks. So you can get pressure on him if you get downhill and get after him. You know, dropbacks under pressure, 26.9%. It's one of the lower ones in the NFL, and he gets rid of the ball quickly. I mean, the ball is out on an average of 2.35 seconds out of his hand. And also you look at time to scramble, 5.16 seconds is the average time before he's got to move. So they have given up 13 sacks, but he does have some time, and he does get rid of the ball. But you got to frustrate him. You got to get him off his spot. You got to get him moving. Here's something that I want to see the Bills do on offense, and I think is a key to the game. The Bills need to find tempo. And earlier when I was talking about complementary football by a defensive head coach, tempo is usually not something they like because it gives their defense less rest. Maybe they play more plays, which puts them in harm's way. I'd love to see tempo with this Bills offense this week. Run some no huddle. Change things up. Quit walking back to the huddle, call the play, walk into the line of scrimmage. They're athletic. They can run around. They can do some things. Let's change the tempo. Let's tempo this defense. Let's try to get them tired. Let's try to get things moving. and let's get out of this rut. And I think tempo is a big deal. And I'd like to see that this week. I think it's a key to the game because I think this offense, I think all offenses play better when they're on time, when they got tempo going and they got a rhythm. And we're having an issue over the last 2 weeks getting a rhythm, and tempo will do that. And then my fourth thing is you've got to control the controllables. And what does that mean? It's fine and dandy if you play complementary football, but when you mismanage the clock at the end of the game, when you don't you don't challenge some of the replays, I don't care who's upstairs. It's a split-second thing. You've got to take some chances with some replays. And you've got to tighten up your on-the-field process, whether that's between you and the coordinators and the position coaches, however that goes. This team, like for instance, the rumor that they had 10 players on the field, unacceptable. You can't have that in the NFL. There's too many staff people. There's too many people that are controlling substitutions that have not enough guys on the field. So my fourth key is you've got to control the controllables when they are there. All right. I think that McDermott is doing a very good job of staying out of Brady's hair, staying out of Babbich's hair. If that's the case, then you've got more time to look at this type of stuff. So you got to control the controllables. So those are my keys to the game. Don't abandon the run against this tough run-stopping Jets defense. Find some tempo in your offense. Frustrate Aaron Rodgers, and then control the controllables. And I think that gets things done on a Monday night in New York. I say New York. In New Jersey, as the Bills are the only true New York football team. We all know that. At MetLife Stadium. Once again, 8:15 Monday night in the Meadowlands in MetLife Stadium. Bills a 2.5-point favorite, 41 on the over-under, and it should be a really, really good matchup. This is a good opportunity for the Bills to come out and right the ship and right all the wrongs that have happened over the last 2 weeks. They have the ability to do that, and I think that if they come out and they take care of business, they can. But, again, we'll need to look at this injury report as the week goes on because things could get pretty dicey for the Bills. But, again, this is the Big O Show right here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. Then, once again, we got a breakdown here on Thursday, as we will the rest of the season. And I really appreciate you watching the show and interacting as well. And, hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're climbing, folks. Things are happening here, and we are overly excited. And we're ready to get after it. We got a lot of cool stuff coming down the line. We got some things that you'll see soon on our shows that we're really, really excited about, and that's because of you, the viewer, the listener, and we appreciate you. So once again, folks, let's hope the Bills have a great game on Monday night, and we'll catch you next week right here on the Big O Show. As always, much love. Go Bills.
Still the same day.